This was the most impressive interview technique I've ever seen. While everyone else gave a serious self-introduction, she instead started talking to the examiners about her dreams. For example, when she was little, watching TV programs made her want to grow up to be a singer. When she stood in line with her mom to buy desserts, she thought being a carefree dessert shop owner sounded nice too. But when she grew up, she realized that her true dream was to become an excellent police officer. The reason she was so determined to apply to the police academy this time was all because of someone special. Hearing this, the examiners couldn't help but grow curious. Who could possibly have such influence over her? Her answer was completely unexpected. Because Uncle Yoon was flattered by the way she praised him, the girl named Eun Kong also passed smoothly. To be fair, flattery really worked here. But in truth, her application to the police academy had another purpose. It all started last year. To help her daughter get into a good university, her mother invited Ju, who had just entered the police academy, to tutor her. But as soon as Eun Kong saw him, she couldn't help but fall head over heels for this handsome Appa. When Appa walked toward her, Eun Kong's heart pounded wildly. She shyly shook his hand, and the electric feeling instantly spread through her whole body. From that moment on, she swore she would not give up until she herself got into the police academy. So today, after passing the preliminary exam, her mood was especially bright. To celebrate, she took a selfie in front of the academy gates. By accident, she captured a boy walking by in the background. That boy was Sung Hyun, who, like her, had just passed the preliminary exam. He had wanted to celebrate with his friends, but unexpectedly ran into his buddy being humiliated by his girlfriend. Sung Hyun stepped in, demanding the girl apologize on the spot. But the girlfriend was aggressive and even threatened to call the police. Sung Hyun thought his friend was being too weak and said that a materialistic girl like her wasn't worth keeping. Things escalated quickly. Eun Kong, sent out by her mom to deliver food, happened to arrive just in time to hear Sung Hyun berating her sister. She wanted to defend her, but when she heard her sister had already broken up and even taken an expensive 5 million won bag from him, she felt there was little ground to stand on. Luckily, Eun Kong had a sharp tongue. With her quick words and stubbornness, she managed to get her sister out of the situation. But just as they shook off the ex, the current boyfriend appeared to cause trouble. Against this kind of thug, Eun Kong's wit was useless. Just when the sisters were about to suffer, Sung Hyun stepped in like a hero to save the day. With one swift move, he subdued the man, who had no choice but to let her sister go. The sister, dazzled by his heroic act, was instantly smitten. Eun Kong, without stopping to thank him, grabbed her sister and ran from the scene. Being a good person sure isn't easy. To make his sister a person of integrity, Eun Kong insisted that her sister return the bag no matter what. She felt the sister must be lying. There was no way she had the money to buy such an expensive gift, and an uneasy premonition rose inside her when she saw her sister's flustered face. Eun Kong quickly guessed the truth. Her sister had secretly been hoarding the piggy bank she had been raising for over 10 years. Who could tolerate that? But no matter who was at fault, because her sister had been sickly since childhood, their parents always made the younger sister apologize first. That was why her sister grew up spoiled and self-centered, while Eun Kong not only bore the scoldings but also ended up with the family's delivery job responsibilities. Feeling frustrated and in need of cooling off, Eun Kong went out to buy something cold to eat, poking fun at things under her breath as she ate. Then she learned that the tutor she admired had somehow found out Eun Kong had passed the police academy preliminary exam, so he gave her a box of candy as a good luck gift, hoping she'd pass the final rounds. If she made it, they could attend the same school. The idea of being together filled Eun Kong with pure joy. But Eun Kong has always been terrible at math. When the official admissions list came out, her name was nowhere to be found. All her efforts seemed to have gone up in smoke, and she felt she had let her father down. She wept. The next day, at her high school graduation ceremony, things suddenly took a turn. While her parents were posing for photos with her, she received a phone call, a call that changed everything. She was being contacted about an admission decision. Police academy training proved to be brutally strict. Even taking a shower could be interrupted by sudden water outages. The girls, covered in foam, had to hurry back to their rooms. That very night one girl fell ill. The next day, Because she was weak, she messed up a drill and her whole group had to endure harsh punishment from the drill sergeant. The intensive training wore them down, and the kind girl didn't want the team to suffer because of her. She gave up her spot, and as a result, Kang unexpectedly received an admission slot. Seeing the dormitory for the first time, Kang was overjoyed. Now she could study at the same school as the tutor she admired. Because the notice was last minute, she only just finished registration in time for lunch and went to the cafeteria, where she accidentally bumped into Sunghyun, the same boy she'd seen a few days earlier. Thinking about how he had publicly confronted her sister, Kang's temper flared, but she didn't know he'd just been admitted as a freshman too. If he happened to be a classmate of her tutor, that would be awkward. Trying to be polite, she fell into the old habit of flattering and acting familiar, but Sunghyun gave her a cold look and snidely asked whether the expensive bag had really been returned home safely, a question that sounded polite but was loaded with criticism toward Kang and her sister. Luckily, a message from a drill instructor downstairs interrupted the moment and gave her an excuse to escape. The instructor was introducing Kang's 3 new roommates. Kang's outgoing personality quickly broke the ice. She told them about the bumpy road to her admission and about how she considered the academy her dream school. Her newly inducted roommates, fresh from intensive training, warned her to enjoy the moment but to keep her energy up for tomorrow. At that point, one quiet girl in the room stood up silently, gave a curt greeting and walked away, which made Kang worry that she'd offended her. The other roommates reassured her that the quiet one had worn that scowl since the start of term and not to take it personally. Still, they were stuck in the same dorm, so they'd have to make do. After the short rest, Kang attended her first class. The basic intro lessons were dull and many students dozed off. Determined not to fall asleep, Kang pinched herself hard, but the female instructor thought she was one of those dozing. After class, the instructor loudly ordered anyone who had nodded off to stand up. Out of fear, those who had really dozed rose one by one. The instructor, however, fixed her gaze on Kang and strode straight over to ask why she dared remain seated. A little dazed, Kang protested that she hadn't really slept and even showed the instructor her hand, indented from pinching herself as proof. But the instructor accused her of lying and then demanded that everyone who had dozed stand forward. That night, all the students were forced into special training. Everyone looked helpless, and Kang could only grit her teeth and endure it. She never imagined that special training meant physical torment. Just because some had dozed off in class, these new recruits were subjected to the instructor's brutal punishment. When the instructor stood before Kang and demanded if she knew what she'd done wrong, the flustered girl blurted out, "I really didn't do it, but this was the police academy, where discipline was absolute. Right or wrong didn't matter, the instructor's word was law." A kind-hearted classmate quietly signaled for her to stop talking back. Thankfully, Kang caught on in time, swallowed her anger, and kept silent. Just then, a strange red glow flickered from a book on the shelf. The next day was judo class. The instructor, wanting to establish authority, deliberately picked a petite student to demonstrate on. He explained the moves while effortlessly throwing the boy onto the mat, leaving everyone impressed. But he wasn't satisfied yet. To further show his skill, he called up Jinjuk, a student with a background in competitive judo. The instructor tried his best, but Jinjuk barely budged. Embarrassed, he launched attack after attack, until he finally managed to throw him. But the moment he landed, Jinjuk countered and locked him tightly in place. With no way out, the instructor had to admit defeat, while the students stifled their laughter. At that moment, Kang noticed Sunghyun sitting not far away. After class, she approached him to confront him about the way he had insulted her sister. But Sunghyun couldn't be bothered. He walked straight into the men's locker room and shut the door in her face. Left standing there, Kang could only return to the women's locker room, where she overheard her classmate Yali praising Sunghyun's heroic act of standing up to bullies. Determined to expose what she saw as his true nature, Kang quickly interrupted. Kang exposed Sunghyun as a guy who even demanded gifts back from his ex-girlfriend, petty and stingy. The heroic image he had just earned collapsed instantly under her blunt words. But because of this outburst, Ju Young started to grow suspicious. wondering if there might be some deeper connection between Eun-kang and Sung-hyun. By lunchtime, Eun-kang's curiosity got the better of her again. She asked her roommates about the academy's strict rules prohibiting dating. Yali responded with a half-serious, half-joking tone. But she also reminded Eun-kang that as long as boys and girls got too close, they would be warned. Still, she quickly guessed what Eun-kang was thinking and assumed she must have a boyfriend here. Eun-kang denied it again and again, but the next second she spotted Woobok, the one she'd been longing to see. Without even grabbing her jacket, she rushed outside, leaving Yali holding her clothes helplessly at the door. Just then, Sung-hyun had finished his meal and was saying goodbye to his friends, but by accident he bumped right into her. While Yali was fixing the clothes, she discovered a hidden recording device. Without thinking, she slipped it into Eun-kang's pocket. Little did she know this seemingly casual move would bring disaster to Eun-kang. During training, the recorder slipped out of Eun-kang's pocket and was picked up by the instructor. Without hesitation, the instructor plugged it into a phone. What appeared on the screen left her eyes wide open in shock. Just when Eun-kang thought she had found evidence to clear her name, she was suddenly trapped in a room. As the door opened, a shadowy figure entered. Flipping on the light, she spotted Eun-kang and became instantly suspicious. Though Eun-kang explained she had only come back to retrieve something, Hannah still eyed the room carefully. When she went to hang her clothes, she noticed signs that the garments inside the wardrobe had been disturbed. She turned sharply to look at Eun-kang, then cautiously sat back on her bed. But as she reached under her pillow to check something, Hannah soon discovered her charger was missing, only to see Eun-kang holding it up in her hand and asking if she was looking for this. The sight of her own charger made Hannah's heart sink. She leapt up, trying to snatch it back, but Eun-kang refused to let go of such crucial evidence. Cornered, Hannah turned violent, grabbing Eun-kang's hair to destroy the proof. But Eun-kang fought back and managed to escape her grip. In the end, she delivered the evidence straight to the instructor. Realizing her secret was exposed, Hannah deflated like a punctured balloon. Still, when questioned by Professor Cha, she refused to admit defeat. She argued that it was her phone charger, claiming she had only smuggled in a phone because her mother was sick. To back her story, she handed over her phone. But Professor Cha saw through the lie instantly. Wanting to give her a chance, he sent the instructor away, then told Hannah to charge the phone. Predictably, the connector didn't even fit. Given the seriousness of the offense, the school decided Hannah would be expelled. Desperate, she threatened to expose the academy's abuse if they didn't change their decision. To protect the school's reputation, the leadership reduced her punishment to probation instead of expulsion. Eun-kang, however, felt deeply wronged. She had nearly been expelled over a false accusation, but now that the real culprit was caught, Hannah only received probation. Outraged, she confronted the instructor. But the instructor warned her not to interfere further. The truth was, the instructor herself disagreed with the school's light punishment. Still, Professor Cha insisted that they couldn't be seen as too harsh with students. That night, Hannah's troubles continued. At 9 p.m., the cadets were ordered to gather for training, but Hannah wasn't in her room. A classmate left a note on her door, which was accidentally blown down and swept away by another student. Unaware, Hannah returned to her room without ever seeing it. Later, Eun-kang noticed the note on the floor. Out of kindness, she reattached it to Hannah's door. But this good deed brought disaster. At roll call, the instructor immediately noticed Hannah's absence and went to her room. Hannah claimed she hadn't known about the training, but the note on her door told a different story. For being late to training, the instructor had humiliated her publicly and ordered her to do 100 squats while shuffling around the gym. For an ordinary person, such a punishment was brutal. Hannah, stubborn to the core, gritted her teeth and completed it, only to collapse and be rushed to the hospital. Seeing her carried away in an ambulance, Eun-kang couldn't sleep the entire night. She was convinced the instructor was taking revenge on Hannah over the hidden camera incident. The next morning, she resolved to report the matter directly to the headmaster. Even if Hannah deserved punishment for her spying, Eun-kang argued, the instructor had no right to mix personal grudges into official discipline. Abusive training would never produce good police officers, only make the cadets more rebellious. But instead of supporting her, the headmaster brushed it aside, saying this was trivial compared to the injustices faced in society. Kang was left speechless, her protest dismissed. Dejected, she left the office, where Sung-hyun hurried to comfort her. Still, Kang believed firmly that she had done the right thing. Even if she felt like nothing more than a fragile egg striking an unyielding stone, Kang was determined to leave her mark. But after being dismissed by the headmaster, she faced a new trial. The instructor discovered his locker had been tampered with and punished the entire class in fury. Not wanting to drag everyone else down, Kang stepped forward to take responsibility. The instructor, already enraged, lashed out and kicked her. Though afraid, Kang protested loudly against the abuse of authority. The instructor raised his hand to strike, but before the blow landed, Sung-hyun caught his arm, stopping him cold. Tension filled the air as a fight nearly broke out. The female instructor rushed in to defuse the situation, but the humiliated officer refused to back down. He declared that unless Kang and Sung-hyun accepted punishment, no cadet would be allowed to stand. An hour passed, and the exhausted students could barely remain kneeling. Just as Kang was about to yield, Sung-hyun stood tall and recited the police academy oath, vowing to become an officer who served justice and destiny. Inspired, Kang immediately joined him. Their defiance sparked courage in the others. One by one, all the cadets rose in solidarity. When the last student stood, victory was sealed. The century-old militarized training system crumbled in that moment, and the headmaster, pressured by public opinion, had no choice but to announce reforms. Kang became the hero of the academy, her name chanted by her peers. The 2-week training camp finally ended, and soon the freshmen gathered for their first official education ceremony. To Kang's delight, the host was none other than the mentor she adored. During the Q&A session, a student asked whether dating was truly forbidden. Smiling, the mentor hinted that as long as one could balance love and study, it wasn't impossible. Kang's heart soared. She took it as a personal signal meant for her. But when she noticed her roommates also eyeing him with admiration, jealousy stirred. That night, she resolved to confess her feelings. Before the banquet even ended, she chased after him, daydreaming about their future together. But just as she was about to approach, another woman ran up to him, and he greeted her tenderly. To Kang's horror, the woman was her own instructor. Stunned, she collapsed in tears, tasting heartbreak for the first time. Kang thought of all the sacrifices she had made to get into the academy, how she had studied relentlessly despite being a poor student, all for him. Yet he already had someone else. To make it worse, when he stopped her, it wasn't to comfort her but to urge her to keep their relationship secret. Devastated, Kang drowned her sorrows in alcohol. Drunk and stumbling, she was carried back by Sung-hyun, who patiently cleaned up after her mess. When her roommates recounted everything the next morning, they teased her that Sung-hyun's expression had been strangely grim while looking after her. Kang panicked, wondering if she had done something shameful in her drunken state. She chased after Sung-hyun, apologizing and fishing for clues, but he played dumb. Relieved when he said nothing had happened, she finally relaxed, though Sung-hyun's slight smile told another story. In truth, the night before, Kang had drunkenly mistaken him for her beloved mentor and clung to him, confessing her love. Sung-hyun realized then that she carried a crush on someone else, but also felt a pang of jealousy he hadn't expected. Yili was feeding tofu to Sung-hyun and Jin-jack. Sung-hyun felt a little embarrassed, but Jin-jack didn't hesitate and stuffed it straight into her mouth. The only reason he followed along was because he liked Yili's cheerful and lovable personality. Yili loved strawberries, and every time she finished eating, she would go after Zhuing's share. Jin-jack remembered this, so whenever he got the chance, he would give his own strawberries to Yili. But because Jin-jack was rather blunt, it often made Yili feel awkward. So when Yili showed concern for him this time, Jin-jack rushed to get ahead of Sung-hyun. With the tension gone, everyone was finally able to relax. What was supposed to be a simple picnic on the field turned into teasing when Zhuing asked about the man Kang supposedly dated at a mixer. Yili casually said that Kang had broken up with him long ago, and Kang quickly clarified that they had never dated at all. But Yili mischievously followed up, claiming they were already married. Eun Kang tried to defend herself, but the more she explained, the worse it sounded, until even Sung Hyun was laughing, teasing her that she sounded like someone hiding a relationship. Embarrassed, Eun Kang changed the subject, asking when the games would begin. Later, as a skilled sniper, Eun Kang had the chance to help Sung Hyun during training. It was her first time firing live rounds, and as expected, her shots were a disaster compared to Sung Hyun, who hit the target almost every time. To help her, Sung Hyun patiently guided her, even correcting her stance hand in hand. When Eun Kang finally managed a hit, she turned to him excitedly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged. Eun Kang closed her eyes, ready to accept whatever might come, but Sung Hyun pulled back, leaving her restless the entire night. She tossed and turned in bed until she accidentally rolled onto the floor, while Sung Hyun, on the other hand, was thrilled by her flustered reaction. 2 weeks later was the annual Police Academy Sports Festival. Eun Kang wanted to pair with Sung Hyun, so she deliberately asked Juing in front of him who she should choose. But before she got an answer, Hannah appeared and asked Sung Hyun to meet her at his dorm the next day, planning to partner with him. Eun Kang's heart sank instantly. The next day, when she saw Hannah practicing with him, she pouted angrily. Just then, Sung Hyun texted Eun Kang to come train with him. Jin Jack, who had noticed their awkwardness, had offered to partner with Hannah instead, freeing Sung Hyun to spend time with Eun Kang. Yuli, however, wasn't pleased when she saw Jin Jack with Hannah. Her mood soured, and after training, she cornered Jin Jack, demanding his help with her own practice, even though they were supposed to be rivals. As relationships among the group deepened, Ju Jae's parents suddenly began acting unusually warm toward him. They proudly introduced their fried chicken shop, boasting that their chickens, raised on bananas and blueberries, produced meat both delicious and healthy. But beneath their hospitality was an obvious attempt to match Ju Jae with their daughter. To Eun Kang's shock, it was her older sister they were promoting, though their parents, ever biased, treated her sister with more favor, even pushing Ju Jae to escort Eun Kang home. Eun Kang, flustered, tried to explain that her parents didn't know he already had a girlfriend. But Ju Jae revealed that he had recently broken up, leaving her even more confused. The two ended up talking at length on the swings, sharing thoughts in a way they never had before. Just as things grew comfortable, Eun Kang excused herself, leaving Ju Jae alone, only for Sung Hyun's call to come through moments later. Ju Jae, unsure whether it was urgent, hesitated before answering. Eun Kang could no longer sit still. She had wanted to confess her feelings to Sung Hyun, but before she could speak, he leaned in and kissed her without warning. She was completely unprepared, because in her memory, Sung Hyun had never been this bold. But for Sung Hyun, this was his one chance to declare his feelings. A few days earlier, Eun Kang had given him the opportunity, but lacking confidence, he had backed down. He regretted it ever since, and now he wasn't going to miss another chance. Originally, he had planned to ask her out to talk things through, but every time he called, it was Ju Jae who answered the phone. That alone made Sung Hyun uneasy, since Ju Jae was none other than the neighbor Eun Kang had secretly liked for years. Determined to take the initiative, Sung Hyun tried to stay by Eun Kang's side during training, but no matter what he did, Ju Jae always found a way to interrupt. Sung Hyun disliked it, but since Ju Jae was his senior, he couldn't openly object. He could only watch as Ju Jae and Eun Kang laughed together. When he heard they even planned to have dinner that night, his heart grew restless. Unable to bear it, Sung Hyun decided to coincidentally run into them at a nearby restaurant. With so many places to look, it wasn't easy, but eventually he found them. Instead of hiding to observe, he deliberately staged an encounter, forcing Ju Jae to invite him to join their table. Ju Jae then placed his wallet prominently on the table, pretending to talk casually about his past with Eun Kang, even revealing that the wallet had been a birthday gift from her when she was in high school. Eun Kang felt embarrassed as the two reminisced, while Sung Hyun sat awkwardly like a third wheel. Just then, Eun Kang excused herself to the restroom, leaving Sung Hyun and Ju Jae alone. Taking the chance to assert dominance, Ju Jae spoke of Eun Kang as though he were still her boyfriend, even asking Sung Hyun to take good care of her. But Sung Hyun wasn't having it. He cut him off sharply, making it clear that he wouldn't back down. Though Ju Jae brushed it off with a phone call as an excuse to leave, He intercepted Eun Kang on her way back and confessed directly, asking if she still had feelings for him. Eun Kang hesitated, but Ju Jae admitted he still liked her. Unfortunately, Sung Hyun overheard this and, heartbroken, left without waiting to hear more. What he didn't know was that Eun Kang had long since given up on her crush. Whatever fondness she still felt for Ju Jae was nothing more than the affection of a younger sister. But because Sung Hyun refused to answer her calls that night, she grew anxious and distracted, even stubbing her toe in the process. At the sports festival the next day, Sung Hyun noticed Eun Kang limping and realized she had hurt herself. Even though it was only a small injury, he scolded her for hiding it and pushing herself too hard. But Eun Kang snapped back, upset that he hadn't given her a chance to explain yesterday, since he never picked up her calls. She knew he must have overheard something, so after the games, she asked him to meet her at the phone booth to clear things up. Meanwhile, a different misunderstanding brewed. Sung Hyun woke up one morning to find himself at Eun Kang's house, lying in her room without a shirt. Startled, he quickly checked under the covers to confirm nothing had happened, then tried to sneak out quietly. But as he fumbled with his socks, the noise woke Eun Kang. She panicked, urging him to leave before her family saw him. Just as he was about to escape, her mother's voice called out from the hall, asking Eun Kang to come out, leaving the two of them wide-eyed in shock. Just as Sung Hyun was about to sneak away, he looked up and was caught red-handed by Eun Kang's father. Thinking fast, Eun Kang lied, saying that Sung Hyun had only come over to give her a driving lesson. But her older sister wasn't so easily fooled. She pointed out the smell of alcohol on him, saying he couldn't possibly drive, and even noticed that one of his socks was missing. Their parents immediately grew suspicious, and when her sister offered to search Eun Kang's room for the missing sock, Eun Kang knew she couldn't hide it any longer, so she told the truth. On Friday after class, she and Sung Hyun had planned to practice driving together. But before they could start, an upperclassman invited Sung Hyun to his birthday party. Not wanting him to look rude, Eun Kang encouraged him to attend, suggesting she'd wait for him at a nearby cafe. He intended to stop by quickly, but the host wouldn't let him leave without drinking. Unable to refuse, Sung Hyun drank more than he should have, and by the time he stumbled to the cafe, Eun Kang had already left after waiting over 2 hours. That night, hungry and with nothing to eat at home, Eun Kang went out to buy snacks, only to find Sung Hyun passed out at her doorstep. Despite being frustrated, she helped him inside. He had tried to bring her fried rice cakes as an apology, but he was too drunk to stay awake. Helpless, Eun Kang put him in her bed while she slept on the floor. She explained only part of the story, but even that was enough to shock her family. Her father suspected more had happened, though Sung Hyun quickly clarified that nothing inappropriate occurred. One slept on the bed, the other on the floor. Luckily, her sister vouched for them, reminding their parents that Eun Kang and Sung Hyun used to be sworn enemies and would never date. That reassurance allowed them to get away with it, for now. But that very night, her sister's words were contradicted. When Sung Hyun walked Eun Kang home, he insisted on waiting until she was safely inside. Eun Kang hesitated, glanced around nervously, and then shyly kissed him. That single kiss ignited their passion, and before long, the two were wrapped in each other's arms right outside her house. Unfortunately, her sister happened to return home just in time to catch them. Having just promised their parents that Eun Kang wasn't dating, she now stood staring in disbelief. Yet, instead of exposing them, she quickly covered for her little sister, pretending she hadn't seen anything. She even teased Eun Kang before leaving, reminding her to be more careful next time. Embarrassed but grateful, Eun Kang realized her sister could be trusted when it mattered most. The next day, Eun Kang really did have her driving lesson with Sung Hyun. Like many boyfriends at the start, he was gentle, patient, and encouraging. But as her constant mistakes tested his patience, even mild-mannered Sung Hyun grew irritable. The more he scolded, the more nervous Eun Kang became, until she accidentally drove onto the highway. Horrified, Sung Hyun snapped awake and guided her off the dangerous road. Once they were safe, Eun Kang burst into tears, accusing him of being a terrible teacher, yelling instead of helping. Her frustration poured out, and she wept openly. Seeing her tears, Sung Hyun immediately softened. He apologized, gently wiped her face, and comforted her. Kang's anger melted, replaced with warmth at his tenderness. Just then, some classmates happened to pass by and spotted the two together, clearly looking like a couple. While Kang and Sunghyun were still basking in the moment, it suddenly dawned on them that their secret relationship might not stay hidden for long. With that, the story comes to an end. Please subscribe and see you next time.